The Stranger. This is a story by Chris Van Allsburg. Have any of you guys heard The Polar Express? Yes. Have you seen that movie or you've read that book before? He wrote that as well. Okay. He's written lots and lots of books. One's called The Widow's Broom. Our librarians here. What else has Chris Van Allsburg written? Can you think of it off the top of your head?
I don't want to say Jumanji.
Jumanji is also, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's right, Jumanji.
Okay, trivia.
You're right. So, Chris Van Allsburg's written some kind of strange books, and this one is no exception. It's definitely kind of an interesting story. So what I want you to do this first time I read it is I just want you to listen to the story, okay? I want you to pay attention to who is our main character, our protagonist, and I also want you to pay attention to just the series of events, what happens in the story, okay? We're going to get to the nitty-gritty part, and we're going to dig into it and try to figure out who he is, because in this book, it contains kind of a mystery. It never really does tell us who the stranger is, so that's what we're going to try and figure out today, all right? So just sit back and relax. It's called The Stranger. It was the time of year Farmer Bailey liked best, when summer turned to fall. He whistled as he drove along. A cool breeze blew across his face through the truck's open window. Then it happened. There was a loud thump. Mr. Bailey jammed on his brakes. Oh no, he thought, I've hit a deer. But it wasn't a deer the farmer found lying in the road. It was a man. Mr. Bailey knelt down beside the still figure, fearing the worst. Then suddenly the man opened his eyes. He looked up with a terror and jumped to his feet. He tried to run off, lost his balance, and fell down. He got up again, but this time the farmer took his arm and helped him to the truck. I can't imagine what he's feeling like. If I had just hit a man and he's laying in the road. Mr. Bailey drove home. He helped the stranger inside, where Mrs. Bailey made him comfortable on the parlor sofa. What's a parlor? You ever heard that word? On the parlor sofa. What do you think it is? It's like the living room, right. Mrs. Bailey made him comfortable on the parlor sofa. Katie, their daughter, peeked into the room. The man on the sofa was dressed in odd, rough leather clothing. She heard her father whisper, must be some kind of hermit. Sort of fellow lives in the woods. The stranger didn't seem to understand the questions Mr. Bailey asked him. I don't think, whispered Miss Bailey, he knows how to talk. Mr. Bailey called the doctor, who came and listened to the stranger's heart, felt his bones, looked in his eyes, and took his temperature. He decided the man had lost his memory. There was a bump on the back of his head. In a few days, the doctor said, he should remember who he is and where he's from. Let me stop right there. You know, I know that this story, where and when do you think this story takes place? What do you think the setting is? Where do you think it is? Outside. Okay, it's outside. Outside where?
In the woods.
In the woods? Where else? What's the man who hit him with the truck? What's his name? Mr. Bailey, but he's also no farmer. He's Farmer Bailey, so it happens on a farm, right? So it's outside in the woods on a farm. Do you think this story has taken place recently? Because the setting's not just about where it takes place; it's about when it takes place. I'm thinking that it took place possibly. It could be during the daytime, right? We at least know it's daytime. Do you think this just happened like in 2019?
Yeah.
Thumbs up if you think 2019. Thumbs down if you think a long time ago. Okay. I'm guessing a long time ago. And you know what my clue was? I know when my kids have gotten hurt or I've gotten hurt, the doctor did not come to my house. They used to call that making a house call. Has the doctor ever come to your house when you were sick? No, you have to go to the doctor, right? But back in the old days, doctors would come to your house. It's called making a house call. So I know that this story must have taken place a while ago, because doctors don't make house calls anymore. Mrs. Bailey stopped the doctor as he left the house. He'd forgotten his thermometer. Oh no, you can throw that away, he said. It's broken. The mercury is stuck at the bottom. What do they mean? What is mercury? Okay. Yeah, it's that stuff in there, right? It's a liquid metal. I heard in the last class I was in, it's a liquid metal. In a thermometer, what color is the mercury? It's red, okay? What happens when it gets hot?
It goes up,
It goes up, right? As it gets hot, it goes up and it's stuck at the bottom. What does that tell me? It's cold. That's weird. He took his temperature and the mercury was stuck at the bottom. That might be a clue. Mr. Bailey lent the stranger some. Okay. Let's just retell this story just so we know what's going on literally. What is the story actually about? Don't make any guesses yet. We'll get to that, okay? So the story starts out, who's our protagonist? Who's our main character? The stranger, okay? And Mr. Bailey and Mrs. Bailey's, okay? The Baileys are some of the characters as well. Our story takes place, we already decided, a long time ago on a farm. Right? Okay? So what happens first? Farmer Bailey's out driving his truck. He hears a loud thump. He hits something. He goes out to check, and there's a man laying in the road. Okay? What does that man do? He gets up and does what? He tries to run away, but Mr. Bailey's like, whoa, 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 are you okay? And he takes him home, and he talks to his wife. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with him. They give him clean clothes, but he doesn't seem to understand what's going on. So what happens next? Call the doctor. Doctor comes and says, he's going to be all right. He just lost his memory. He's got a bump on his head. Okay? But then some things start happening. What's one of the first things that happens? The mercury's stuck at the bottom. He blows on the soup. And Mrs. Bailey says, Burr, there's a draft in here. And he goes outside, and what happens? Okay. Before that, what happened after that? He goes outside. Before that, the rabbits, right? He goes outside, and the rabbits come towards him. Okay. Then he goes outside, and he helps Farmer Bailey. He helps him, but he never gets tired, never sweats. Sitting out, enjoying nature, hanging out with the Baileys, just becoming one of the family, helping on the farm. But then all of a sudden, he notices it's like fall has happened here, but it hasn't happened here. Weird. And then all of a sudden, something really bad occurs to him, and he thinks, oh no, what have I done? Something's going on. Okay? So he decides to leave, but every year they see etched in the frost. You know how when you drive into school and your windows are kind of frosty, and you can write in the frost, and you can etch in that glass? Okay, he etches, see you next fall. Do they ever see him again? They never see him again, but they just have a message etched in their glass. That might freak me out a little bit. If I woke up and see you next fall was written on my window and I didn't know who did it. That might be a little weird. Okay? So, here's what I want us to do. Something that readers do it's like when they're reading, they're trying to put this whole puzzle together. Okay? So in your notes, I want you to create this with me. Just draw a big square, draw it into fours. You can make it look like a puzzle if you'd like to, or you can just draw a floor square. Wherever you take notes, wherever you make your anchor charts. We're going to come back to that story in just a minute. You know, that book was kind of confusing to me. Just like when I've been watching a movie, and all of a sudden I start asking myself questions. What in the world? Why are those rabbits hopping towards him? Why is the mercury stuck to the bottom? Good readers ask themselves questions as they're going. I meant to have you guys do that and I didn't have you. So in that first box, I want you to write questions. Because one thing readers do when they're reading is they ask themselves questions. You know, just like when you're watching a movie and all of a sudden some guy walks in the room and everybody gets upset and you're like, who's that guy? Why are they so upset? Okay, what did he do? Okay, so one thing readers do is they ask themselves questions. Readers also, I'll give you a minute to draw that square. Make it look like a puzzle if you like. In that first box, label it questions. Something else readers do is they use this big fancy word. I bet you've heard it before. It's called schema. Turn and talk to the people at your table and tell them what schema is. Schema. What do you think schema is? Yeah, write schema in that second box. Schema. Heard that word before? Sounds like a scheme. Is this a new word for you guys, schema? I'll give you a hint. You know, I live on a farm. I really do live on a farm. I'm not making that up. I live on the farm out in the country, okay? So I know that when I'm out in driving at night, a lot of times people hit deer. I see a lot of dead deer. I was coming down 270 on my way here and I saw dead deer all over the highway, okay? I know that already. That's part of my schema, okay? I also know that when I've been outside, maybe at the park, and I've gone towards a rabbit, it did not hop towards me. What did it do? It ran away. I know that about rabbits. That's part of my schema. So what do you think schema is? It's what I know. Okay? It's another word for it would be my background knowledge. It's what I, oh, that's not going to fit. Hopefully you're smarter enough you're writing. It's what I know. You can just put schema, what I know. It's my background knowledge. It's what I already know. So good readers ask themselves questions. They use what they already know. They also use what the text says. They use what the text says. And I don't know if you've done this work or not, but I know that if I use what the text says plus my schema, we call that, this big word, inference. Have you heard the word inference? Or infer? Okay. Infer means I take what I know plus what the text tells me and I figure out what the text didn't come out and say. I didn't say that in the text, but I know that. The text didn't tell me that the Baileys are a close family, but I know that because I saw them dancing together, I saw them having that conversation, they were having dinner together, they were playing the piano, they were working on the farm together. The text didn't tell me, I made an inference, okay? So if I take the questions I have, plus my background knowledge, plus what the text says, plus an inference, I can do this thing that teachers ask me to do called drawing conclusions. Good job, you guys have heard this term before, okay? And drawing conclusions is when I take my schema, the questions, the inferences, and what the text says, and I come up with my own idea about what I know from the text, okay? So my definition for drawing conclusions is going to be using two or more inferences, that's a 2 plus. Two or more inferences, my schema, the text, and questions I have. To come up with my own idea. Okay? So drawing conclusions is when I use two or more inferences, my schema, the text, questions, to come up with my own idea. I have my own idea about who I think the stranger is. But what we're going to do is we're going to practice some inferencing, some inferring first, and then we're going to use those inferences to draw the conclusions.